Good evening, everybody. I'm Hybrid Havoc, and this is Pixel Reboot. And today we've got a special guest, Jake, from Concord Alumni's new esports program. Let's give him a view. Hello, Jake.
Hello.
And he's going to tell us a little bit about the esports program that you guys have. And I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Yep.
And we're going to get back into this. So you can find them. You're going to give them YouTube channels, Pixel, Twitch, and all that stuff. All right.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start from square one. I started here end of April, so it's been about 6 months.
Yeah.
Basically, I just realized that because I just paid my 6-month car insurance. So.
Oh.
Yeah. So I started here in April, and basically Concord said, here's a program, there's nothing to it, you have to build it. And so I went from square one.
Now, did you have any experience doing this beforehand, or is this brand new to you?
It's sort of like 50-50. So I started out mostly with brand building. I have a PR degree from Iowa State.
Yeah.
And with that, I went into social media, which is why I do a lot of what I do today. But went into social media, got decent at that for my age, and then went and worked for Cole McVoy up in Minneapolis. While I was there, I worked on national accounts. Target was a client. Just to toss that like a name out, and then that position ended. Started looking for others, and people ask me all the time, how do you become an esports coach? What do you do? Because who really knows? But really, it was just I found it online and applied for it, just like any other job. It is just a job. At the end of the day, applied to it on this online board. Waited like a month or two.
So it was quick. It was about a month.
Relatively, yeah. And really didn't expect to even hear back from them. I sent probably hundreds of applications while I was job searching, and got an email back and said, hey, we want to do an online interview. We'll call in. I did that, heard back, I think the next day, and said, hey, we're going to fly you out if that's something you want to do. So they flew me from downtown Minneapolis to, I think it was Roanoke. Yeah, it was Roanoke, and then I had a rental car.
Yeah, and drove in.
Drove into Athens the night before, did my interview. And that was with the search committee of, it was about a dozen people.
Okay.
So it was the president, one of the people in her office, admissions, several professors. Kevin Bennington was one of them.
I'm familiar with him.
Yes,
he's a good guy. He was actually one of my professors when I was at school here.
Yeah, great guy. And I mean, during my interview, I could sort of see that he was really into the whole thing. Not just esports, but video games.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about his experience with them, mostly RPGs and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so I did that interview, flew back home after driving back to Roanoke. And then I think I waited like a day or two.
Yeah. And
then I got a phone call while I was walking my dog. And this was like February, I think. And Minneapolis was frozen. And so it's freezing cold downtown. There's no trees, and so the wind is just blowing through. And I'm like, I can't hear you. Can I call you back?
Did you put shoes on your dog?
I did, yes, because it was literally like negative 40 degrees.
I was about to call the Humane Society.
Yes, and so get this call, and I'm like, I can't hear you. I understand that this is Concord. I know what this is probably about, but I can't hear you one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so like, can I call you back in like 5 minutes? So we ran home, got up the stairs, managed to get Rose, who's the HR director here, and got her back on the phone. She was like, Jake, we're gonna offer you the job.
Oh.
And so we just talked details for a little bit, and then immediately I called my mom and was like, Mom, I'm gonna be a new sports coach.
I'm moving to West Virginia.
Yeah, and I hadn't told her about even the interview, the first interview, until they offered to fly me out here, because I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up. And so up until that second interview where they were offering to fly me out, I was like, Mom, I did an interview, it went really well, and so they're flying me out for it. It's in West Virginia. It's for this thing, and she's no stranger to esports. I've been competing and playing games since like Pokemon Yellow, Halo 2 and all those, and then competing in games since early high school.
Sure.
So she's always been super supportive.
Very good. So shout outs to mom.
Shout outs to mom. She's one of the best for sure.
Nice. So what are some of the biggest challenges you're going to have as somebody, new here in West Virginia on a new program? Are you cultivating talent here, or are you trying to bring in talent? Like, what's your goals there?
Yeah, that's really question number one. So it's a little bit of both. So my entire Call of Duty team, I've got one person from Connecticut, two from West Virginia, one from Tennessee, and then one from Virginia. So one was a student here previously. The other West Virginian was friends with him in high school, and so he recruited him this summer. The one from Virginia has two triplet sisters here. He's the third triplet. So, and they play softball here, so they're just built to compete, I suppose. But and then the student from Connecticut was recruited for another athletic program on campus, and then ultimately decided to come to my program. And then the student from Tennessee I recruited outright. He was pretty much the only student this summer for Call of Duty that I, from square one, recruited him from the online softwares that we have as a part of NACE. From square one to he's here now. But to answer your question, yes, we're looking at both cultivating talent and bringing in talent, because Jamie, the Call of Duty captain, is from West Virginia.
Sure.
And then Bevan, the Overwatch captain, is also from West Virginia. He's from Bluefield. And so we have some excellent players from West Virginia, but there's a few holes we've had to fill, and so that's ultimately what we've had to do.
Now, I'm kind of new to the whole esports thing. I mostly do the entertainment, gaming, and stuff like that. How many people are part of a team, and do you ever have any problems with those people interacting with each other, or how do you have to balance their gameplay plus also their probably ego? Because I know gamers have a lot of ego, and especially in competitive gaming. Do you have to tamper that down, or do you encourage that? What's your style so far?
It's difficult. I'm 23.
Sure.
So I don't even pretend to have the authority that more established traditional coaches have. I don't really even have a philosophy yet on what my coaching style looks like. Other than I am here to make sure that you're making the smartest plays from a strategic angle as possible. And if you're doing something that deters that, I will call you on it. We've had, but the other half of your question, egos are probably my least favorite thing in esports. I consider myself I consider myself a somewhat muted person from a emotional perspective. I don't show a whole lot of outward emotion, keep it relatively contained, whereas I've got a lot of players who getting quiffs on Twitter all the time with competitors in Discord. We've had to deal with that a couple times. So it's definitely a struggle, and you're not wrong, and it's comparable easily to traditional sports where you've got your quarterbacks and you've got running backs and your wide receivers and safeties who are all like, I'm the best at what I do. When you're probably not. Like there's a guy who's not in my program but who we compete against, who on stream I think yesterday was ranting on stream, just screaming about he was one of the best players in the game for Call of Duty. I've noticed that egos are huge in Call of Duty, but not so much in like League of Legends, where I come from. I think it's an FPS thing. I'm not totally sure though. Console FPS thing. I think that's the.
I played a lot of FPSs, and I had the cool demeanor, similar to you, I think, for that. I always was like, oh yeah, I'm the best, but cool about it, not like screaming or any of that stuff. So I get what you're saying, and we had people in that same team when I was here. That when Halo came out, and they were shouting and screaming about how they were the best and threatening me across the lunchroom and all that stuff. But I don't know. I always thought it was like just talk.
It works two ways. I think there's a healthy balance. Of course, the problem has been finding that healthy balance for some of the players, which is sort of where I come in. That whole when I was during initial interviews when I took the job, I did a lot of interviews from stations and outlets out of West Virginia, and they were like, how can you be a head coach at 23? Like, that's pretty cool, dude.
Yeah.
You know, like, that. Is there another head coach even that's 23 years old?
I honestly thought you were older. I thought you were older.
I do get that a lot.
Which is fine. I mean, you're very mature, and I've been working with you on emails and we've interacted, and I thought great things. I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. The interaction is great, and I could probably see how your team is going to take into that. So I think your maturity level is really good, is what I'm saying.
I appreciate that, and I think that's sort of the belying factor of like, yes, I'm 23, but it doesn't really matter when you get down into what the job is, and that's I have to teach them not only game skills but life skills.
Sure.
You know, West Virginia is a fairly small state, but I most recently was living in downtown Minneapolis, where you have cultures from around the world, and I was working at an agency of 300 people interacting, and so I came from like a very interactive, calculative life before I came here, and so I really thought I brought that experience and can help when interacting with my students, help understand like, here is the bigger picture, right?
Sure.
Your Twitter interaction isn't as simple as just the words you're putting out there. Here's how they play into things, or or this tournament that we're playing in tomorrow. It's not just a tournament. It's not just this thing that we're playing in. There's no stakes to it, but that's something that we can leverage when we start looking at procuring other sponsors and looking at and building out an online portfolio for our program and things like that. You know, it's not just this zero stakes tournament that people are building it up to be.
No, and can you tell me more about that tournament? And then what other tournaments do you have lined up for this year? And what are your goals for this year?
Sure. So video games are in this weird spot competitively, especially collegiately, where there's no great organizer. There's NACE, N-A-C-E, that is a governing body, but it's not like the NCAA, where you have the NCAA regional tournaments or leagues or anything like that. They're just, here's a rule book.
Yeah.
There's no NACE tournament for any game.
Sure.
And so you have these other third-party organizers for games that have publishers that you have to then interact with a lot. And so there's a lot of like weird give and take. Can I do this? Can I not do this? Then you've got Twitch, so it's like, can I stream this thing? So with Call of Duty, we're part of the CCL, that's the College COD League. With Overwatch, we're part of TESPA, which is the overseeing governing body for Overwatch and a couple other games. For League, we're part of the Riot Collegiate League. So there's 3 different leagues for 3 different games. But this weekend, we're playing in the CCL's Goodbye Black Ops 4 tournament. So if you don't know, Black Ops is currently on the title, Call of Duty is currently on the title Black Ops 4.
Yeah.
October 25th, it's swapping to Modern Warfare. And so the CCL, the weekend before Modern Warfare drops, is doing this like goodbye tournament.
Okay.
And we're coming in as basically challengers. We didn't compete last year because we didn't have this program.
Yeah, of course.
And other schools that did, like the team that won at Humber, they have an esports program that was established, and so they competed. You don't have to be an esports program to compete in these tournaments. When I was at school, there was the Iowa State TESPA team for Overwatch was really good, and they made it pretty far, but they were a club. Yeah. And so you don't have to be an esports program, but it certainly helps, because then you have people like me who are looking for these organizers, communicating for the students who should be focusing on other things.
Being a coach.
Yeah, exactly. And so this weekend we're competing in this tournament as this challenger, sort of underdog team that nobody really likes. So we've been in communication on Discord and looking for scrims to prep for the tournament, just to warm up again, because after the CWL's COD champs, you know, the professional scene.
Sure.
The game basically dies until the next title comes out. And so my players have done the same thing up until like less than a month ago. They were just doing homework, and we weren't doing practices until Modern Warfare came out.
College work,
yeah. They were doing what they should as college students, putting the athlete stuff on the side. We can get into that later, but we basically in this agreement of our league isn't until spring. All 3 of the leagues are.
Sure.
So until Modern Warfare comes out, there's really no point in practicing.
Yeah.
Well, then the CCL said, hey, we're going to do this goodbye tournament. And we were like, I talked to my players, like, hey, let's win this. And because for various reasons, but the first being we thought we could. We've got the talent to do it.
Nice.
And so we were like, okay, let's start scrimming. So a couple of my players used to play competitively, have fairly decent contacts on Twitter and things like that. And so we started reaching out on Twitter. Wasn't getting a great amount of feedback or things lined up to scrim, because you're like, it's October, why are you trying to scrim? It's a really weird thing in Call of Duty that I never ran into in League. Because the game never dies like the way a Call of Duty title does. But we were getting a whole lot of pushback. And then finally, Villains is an organization, shout out to you guys, they scrimmed us for like 3 nights in a row and have still kept doing it. So nothing but thanks to them, just for letting us scrim them. But then we started finally getting some CCL teams to scrim against, and our record is 47-7 win-loss, and that only one of, and that's map count. Only one of those was a loss total. So you know it's best of 5.
Sure.
So we count 3-2, and only one that we've played we've lost. So,
nice. That's great.
Yeah, we've got a lot of 5 and 6-0s. So we're looking pretty strong.
So you're going into this tournament tomorrow with really good strategy.
And our bracket is actually looking pretty strong for us to make it to finals. On top of that, the University of California, I think he's University of California. He's based in California, student. His IGN's Nectar. So shout out to you, Nectar. He put us on his preseason power rankings list, which is totally subjective to him. But he put us as 3rd on the list as this challenger brand. You know, nobody's seen us in a competition. Nobody's really heard anything except for our exceptional scrim record.
Okay, great.
So that's a lot of leverage, and we took that news pretty seriously, that someone was actually putting eyes on us and saying, you are a contender to be at the top.
Now, you guys are going to be streaming this tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, we're not quite sure exactly how streaming rights are going to go, so whether we're going to take it on Concord's Twitch itself and be able to stream it, or if we have to host someone else. But yeah, it's going to be streamed tomorrow. All right.
Well, we'll have it on our Twitch. We'll host it and do
Definitely
what we can to promote it as well.
I appreciate that.
So what's the rest of your season going to look like?
Yeah, so going into spring is when those leagues really start kicking off, and that's when you start getting organized play. You know, that's when you've got like weekly not tournaments, weekly league matches, right? So like if you win or lose, that influences playoffs and later tournaments, and that's pretty much a weekly thing for all 3 teams. The thing is I am the head coach of 3 teams.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Which, you know, people see my title and it's just Head Esports Coach of this program, and they're like, oh, you're the Head Esports Coach of one program. Inside that one program, there's actually 4 teams, because there's 2 Call of Duty teams. And so time is not something that is really even in my vocabulary at this point. The reason I check my watch is to see when team workouts are, team practices are, when I need to walk my dog. And so really it's just a lot of juggling. The
dog is still in the picture. I'm glad to hear that. I thought you left it out in the snow.
No, Cooper is still
Cooper
still
made it.
Yeah, he's my little baby.
Nice.
So that I really, all I do is work, but it's still very difficult to balance, because I run a lot of concurrent practices. And some teams need more help right now than others. Like my starting Call of Duty team does not need as much help as the second team, because they have so much competitive experience. The second team is great, and they've actually done really well in the scrimmages we've done, but the first team has these literal all-star players who have Jamie Nickel has been playing competitively and has gone to CWL tournaments and plays fairly well. So you know, that's sort of, they run their own ship, and when there's a cog that's not working and they can't figure it out, then I step in and say, you literally just have to do this. It's not that hard. But and then with Overwatch, the coach or the captain Bevan is taking on a huge load, and really helping to bring them up to competitive stance.
Now, are you going to have a link to like all your, or do you have a place where you show every one of your content
all of our
events, the events that are going to occur?
Yeah.
Because I just want to make sure that we're able to link to that on this video. You can find that in the comments below if we have.
Yeah, definitely. That will all be released as we get that information. So the sign up actually starts in November for all of those leagues. But I mean, I come from a social media management background, and so I am all in on social media.
Yeah,
and we post all of our updates on it. We just released a video today, which I think we talked about a little bit, but So all of that will be on there. And we're also working on Concord's website to develop that events tab within the esports section. So we're working on a couple different ways to figure out the best way to hit the most people who would want that information.
Sure.
But we don't even know what the schedule is yet, so hard to plan ahead.
I got you. But when you do have that, we'll probably put a link up into the cards of this video, so you guys can check that out. And we definitely want to get as much support to you as possible.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's sort of been another thing is we really built this from basically the bottom. It was Jake, you have to do this thing, and I was like, with all of the time in my day, let me do all of these other things, because on top of coaching students, I'm also recruiting students for next year, which there's not a whole lot of time to do. I'm also looking for potential sponsors, which is monotonous, easy sending out email work, really. And to start it.
As somebody who's been working with sponsors, it is difficult. So don't.
Right. And
that's hard work, good sir.
Yes, but to start it, it's a lot of, hi, here's a plugged email. And so it's a very difficult process, but that's why I brought on students. Ultimately, that's why I said, hey, I'm looking for a video intern. I'm looking for a photographer. I'm looking for a social media manager, a sponsorship person. And so I've got roughly just shy of half a dozen interns.
That's great, because you can be able to give those kids something to work towards as well. They could put that on their resume, and that's good real life work, and with contacts that they're gonna really meet. So that's kudos to you, and kudos to the Concord for giving them an opportunity to get working, which getting internships and stuff like that is just harder and harder. So I'm a big supporter of that. I think you're doing the right thing.
And I think that was one of the things in my interview that might have stuck a bit. I never really asked what it was, but I always defaulted back to I want to give students the power to do something with this. Because when I was in college, I'm sure there's a lot of people who might be watching this feel the same. When I was in college, I wanted to do this, right? I wanted to do PR, working in social media, in esports. That was my thing. And so once I got out of college, it was like, how do I do that? I had 6 unpaid internships before I ever got paid. Once I finally got paid, it wasn't in esports, it was in mental health. And then I was like, what do I do with a mental health background with social media trying to jump into esports? So I went to work at Cole McVoy. A bunch of the nerds in IT who I love to death were like, hey Jake, we're going to do this Heroes of the Storm tournament. And so by some luck of the draw, I was in the right place at the right time to do this huge agency tournament where it was just a bunch of employees playing in a 4-team bracket that we streamed for like 3 hours. It was a great experience. One of the best things I've ever done in my life. But without that, I wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't be here because I wouldn't have had an esports.
Sitting in the back of a truck doing it.
I mean, it's a gorgeous truck, so I'll take it. But I looked at that experience and was like, I think that every student that I interact with should have the chance to have that by my own construction. If no one else is going to give it to them, I'm going to make it happen. And so my social media intern Zoe, she is a sophomore now, but when she started was actually the beginning of the summer, or actually it was the end of spring semester last year. And I was literally just, I was reaching out to directors of departments and saying, hey, I'm looking for a social media intern. And someone in the business department said, hey, I've got an intern, here's her name, here's her phone number. And Zoe's first day, she came and did an interview with a news station for me. And it was about esports marketing, or the questions for her, and it was literally her first day. Like we hadn't even signed a contract yet. It was just like, hey, Zoe, what questions do you have that we're going to put on the news with your face? And so she's been nothing but amazing, and she's brilliant in with all the help she's been giving me.
Well, it feels like gaming has. When I was gaming at this school, it was different. It was more of an underground, very underground. And now it feels like everybody wants a piece of it. Like the news articles, big societies, big people want to be involved in it, and because they want to get to the money. And it's interesting that we're all starting to go that route, and there's new jobs being opened up and new developments occurring, and it's just really exciting for a lot of people. Especially it feels like with gaming being like gaming used to be underground, and now it's not. It's in your face.
Yeah, I think the the best single image of that has been the blow up with Fortnite and Ninja. I think everybody will go back to that. I mean, I think everybody within the scene, esports is like, I mean, Ninja that's a big deal, but we're all kind of like past it. Like, it's not like we're over it, but it's like, and we're looking at the next big thing, right? Ninja's still doing his thing, it's still going great, but we're all looking at like what is the next cool thing? What is the next thing that somebody can do? What can brands do? What can Concord Esports do? But that's sort of been probably the most exciting part, is that nobody's got it figured out. And so really, even if you mess up, most people haven't been doing it long enough to be like, gotcha.
Yeah.
They'll be like, hey, I don't really know what you're doing here. I can't critique you.
I can agree with that. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what we're doing, and we're just like, we don't even know. Well, maybe it'll work.
Yeah, it's like, it's throwing a handful of darts at the board, and I mean, we can consider ourselves relatively informed people, but at the end of the day, it's like, at the end of the day, we're just having fun and
that's great.
And doing everything that we think will make sense, and ultimately just considering our audiences and saying, what do they want? What do my students want? What do potential students want? What do alumni want to see?
Yeah.
And then, what do people that are following our competitive teams want to see? And that goes back to like the video today. So
nice. So let's go over. Just let us know where we can find out about more of your stuff.
Sure.
And then I wish you luck on your tournament tomorrow.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And so Facebook and Instagram is at Concord Esports. Twitter is Esports Concord, because there's some Concord Sports out there that took our at. And then YouTube and Twitch. YouTube is Concord Esports, and then Twitch is Concord University. So I will get links and all that.
Yeah, we'll have the links in the
tricky, but
in the description below and all that stuff like that.